and I will be portraying Dr. Alex McDonald.
And so you're Allie and you've got Alex, Dr. Alex. Thanks, Allie. Any more Team Holden?
Yes, I'm Abby Zayas, and I'm just the timekeeper.
Thanks. And Abby, you're good to go on, since we're starting late, you're good to go on all that, correct?
Yes, I have everything ready
Okay,
for screen sharing and everything.
good, thanks. Anybody else from Team Holden? All right, Team Obama.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm the lead attorney from Team Obama, and we have our coaches here, Coach Chelsea Metcalf, Coach Ronald Rogers, and Coach Mike Cohen. I will be doing opening statement, and I will allow my team to introduce themselves.
Thank you.
My name is Eric Rojas, and I will be conducting the cross-examination of Blake Stevens.
My name is Charles Calkins, and I'll be conducting cross-examination of Alex McDonald.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Madison Tate, and I'll be doing the direct examination.
I missed who you're doing the direct of, Madison.
Jordan Markson.
Thanks.
Jordan Markson.
Thank you.
My name is Angela Henley, and I will be doing the direct examination of Dr. Taylor Smith.
I'm Eric Rojas, and I also forgot to mention that I will also be doing the closing argument along with the cross of Blake Stevens.
So cross of Blake and closing, right?
That is correct.
Good to go, thanks.
My name is Gabby Liang, and I will be the screen sharer.
Gabrielle, it's Gabrielle, right?
Gabriella, yes.
Gabriella, sorry. I missed that. It's the volume's really low. I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me better now?
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Who do you have? What are you doing?
Oh, I am the screen sharer.
Awesome. Okay.
My name is
Anything else,
Ro
Obama?
Wolf, timekeeping for the defense.
What's your name again?
Ro Wolf.
Thanks. Anybody else? We good?
Yeah, hi, my name is Eve Dark, and I'll be portraying Jordan Markson.
Thanks.
My name is Josh Henley, and I'm going to be portraying Dr. Taylor Smith.
Okay, thanks.
That is everyone from our team, Your Honor.
Thanks. Okay, just a couple of ground rules and we'll get going here. Everybody, I assume, is ready because you've been waiting here forever for us to get on board. So we're on Zoom, so it's really important that nobody talks over someone else. There's no court reporter, but there are jurors and they can't hear you if you do that, especially on Zoom. So it's not hard during opening and close, but it becomes difficult for objections. So what we'll do is if there's an objection, you'll state objection, and then I'll ask if either side wants to be heard, and then you can take your turns and go, and then I'll rule. And just the way I kind of operate is I'm like an umpire. I'm going to make a ruling, and then we're going to move on. We're not going to argue about it, and we're always going to talk. We're always going to address the objections to me. That's not so much. It's not so difficult when we're in Zoom because we're all looking the same way. But we're not going to talk to each other. So if someone has an objection, they make it, and there's no. We're going to maintain civility. I know you will all do that, but no matter what anybody does, we're going to keep our cool, keep our poise, and work through this. And you'll have all the time you need, and the timekeepers will tell you when you're running out of time, and respect those timekeepers. Everybody ready to go? Well, just give me a thumbs up if everybody's ready, because we are. The jurors are. I know they are. Okay. Just so you know, because there's a scorekeeping aspect to this, I'll take a little break, a 30-second break after different portions that show up on our ballot. So don't worry about that when it's silent for a minute. That's just the way we've got to do that so we can get good comments down for everybody and make sure it's scored correctly and efficiently, okay? All right. Okay, I'm going to call Case number 2021 mock trial, People of the State of Illinois versus Jordan Markson, M-A-R-K-S-O-N. Representing Team Holden, the State of Illinois. Opening statement. Are you ready to go?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Okay, you may.
Thank you. May it please the court, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. One pill stole one life. On the day of June 5th, 2020, a tragedy would unfold. Picture this: a dark, clouded basement, cigarette and marijuana smoke in the air, and hard liquor and beer spewing all over the floor. This was the defendant's basement on the night in question. Three friends, Blake Stevens, Riley Russell, and the defendant, Jordan Markson, spent the night drinking heavily, smoking cigarettes, and doing drugs. This night would take a turn for the worse when Riley Russell took one pill provided by the defendant. This one pill stole Riley Russell's life as they fell unconscious and were unable to be revived by paramedics, a life taken from the world far too young and far too soon. In this case, as the prosecution, we have the burden of proof. We have to prove 2 counts beyond a reasonable doubt. The first count is drug-induced homicide. To prove this charge, we have to prove that the defendant, with full knowledge, gave oxycodone to Riley, that the defendant ingested any amount of this oxycodone, and Riley's death was contributed to the oxycodone, and any amount of the oxycodone contributed. The second count is possession of a controlled substance. To prove this charge, we have to show that the defendant, with full knowledge, possessed a substance containing oxycodone, which is classified as the controlled substance. Today, you will hear from 2 witnesses, Blake Stevens and Dr. Alex McDonald. Blake Stevens will testify to overhearing the defendant say that they had the hookup for marijuana and oxycodone, as the defendant knew where it was, as it was in the cabinet above the microwave. Blake will also testify that they woke up in the middle of the night looking to use the restroom and found the defendant and Riley gone from the basement for about 20 minutes. You will also hear from Dr. Alex McDonald. Dr. Alex McDonald is an expert in epidemiology and anatomic and forensic pathology. McDonald will detail how Riley Russell's death was contributed to the oxycodone because of 3 things: the timing, the amount, and the distress. The timing of the quick death, the ingestion of the 40 milligrams of oxycodone shown through toxicology reports, and the distress felt by Russell, which McDonald observed on autopsy. At the conclusion of the trial, I believe that the prosecution will have fulfilled their burden of proof that on June 5th, 2020, one pill stole one life. For this, we ask you to find the defendant guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, State. Attorneys, if you want to take 30 seconds and get some comments done, and defense in 30 seconds, we'll have you do your open. Lauren, you good? Okay. For the defense, opening statement, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, members of the jury, Riley Russell's death was nothing less than a tragedy. Let's not turn one tragedy into 2. You will hear in court today how Riley Russell's disregard for his own health and well-being, as well as his actions, was a major contributor to his death, on the morning of June 6, 2020. The evidence will show that not only did Riley Russell's actions take his life that early morning, but his recklessness halted the life of his friend Jordan Markson, who before June 5th was destined for success and was excited to start college with a scholarship to Clearwater State. On the night in question, Jordan invited a couple of friends over to her grandmother's house, her sanctuary away from the troubles of her home life, to simply relax and play some video games. We will hear from Jordan how Riley asked if there were any pills present in the house, to which Jordan replied that she didn't know if there were any. The night continued on from there, with 3 Clearwater High students snacking, drinking, and playing the night away. You will hear that after falling asleep at some point, Jordan woke up to the sounds of choking and gurgling. Imagine the horror when she opened her eyes to see her friend Riley turning blue in front of her, dying in the middle of the room with a prescription bottle lying next to him. Jordan quickly snapped into action, dialing 911 to get her friend some help as soon as possible, desperately hoping that they would arrive in time to save Riley. But despite all efforts that early morning, Riley died within Jordan's little sanctuary, and Jordan's life was never the same. After watching her friend die, Jordan was then arrested for drug-induced homicide and possession of a controlled substance, which is why we are here in court today. The prosecution has the burden of proof in this case. They must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Jordan Markson possessed the oxycodone and that she delivered the oxycodone to Riley Russell on the night in question, that Riley Russell then ingested the controlled substance, and finally that the oxycodone was the cause of Riley Russell's death. As a defense, we bear no burden of proof. Nevertheless, we will call 2 witnesses to the stand to show all the reasonable doubt that exists in this case. First, we will call Jordan herself, an eyewitness to Riley's death, who will testify that she did not give Riley the pills because she herself did not know where they were located in her grandmother's house. Next, you will hear from expert witness Dr. Taylor Smith, who has been practicing medicine for 3 decades. Dr. Smith specializes in cystic fibrosis, the severe lung disease that had affected the late Riley Russell's life. Dr. Smith will testify that in his expert opinion, it was a combination of drinking, smoking, and Riley Russell's cystic fibrosis that caused his death on June 6, 2020. The defense recognizes that Riley Russell's death was nothing less than a tragedy. However, it was not a tragedy caused by my client's actions. By the end of this trial, it will all be clear. And at that time, my co-counsel Eric Rojas will come before you to ask you to find Jordan Markson not guilty on both counts. Convicting Jordan would only turn one tragedy into 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The jurors would take a few seconds to finish that ballot. Thanks, everybody. Okay. State, are you ready for your case in chief?
Yes,
State
Your Honor.
witness. Thanks. State witness 1.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would like to call our first witness, Blake Stevens, to the stand.
Okay. Mr. Stevens, if you'd raise your right hand, please. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I swear.
Your witness is sworn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please introduce yourself to the court and jury.
My name is Blake Stevens. I'm 17 years old and a senior at Clearwater High School.
Where are you from?
I'm from the village of Clearwater in Illinois. My parents are divorced and I live with my dad and my younger sister. My older brother Seth lives with us too when he's home from college.
How do you spend your spare time?
I like to play Dungeons and Dragons and Settlers of Catan at a local role-playing game store. I am part of the tech crew from my school's theater productions. I am also part of the second chair oboe for my school's band.
And what about school?
I had just finished my junior year of high school. My life got completely derailed when I hung out with Jordan Markson and Riley Russell the week before finals.
Did you know Jordan Markson or Riley Russell before that night?
No, not really. I knew that Jordan has a reputation for throwing some really epic parties, but we had never hung out before. And I didn't really know Riley that well either, but teachers were always bringing people in to talk about some kind of condition that Riley had.
Is the defendant in court today?
Yes.
What happened the weekend before finals?
I was talking with Jordan in gym class. I told her that I wasn't really planning on doing anything. I was going to be home on Friday, spending time with my brother before studying for finals for the rest of the weekend. I thought it was kind of odd, but Jordan asked if my brother was 21. I told her that he was.
Do you remember what day that was?
Yeah, it was Friday, June 5th.
Why did you agree to spend the night at Jordan's grandmother's house?
Honestly, I thought that if I could become friends with Jordan, then I might have a better chance of being around my crush over the summer. Also, Jordan has a reputation for being a hookup for marijuana, and I thought Jordan might give me some. I heard it is supposed to help you unwind.
Were there any other reasons?
I also overheard Jordan telling someone else in our gym class that she has a hookup for Oxy because Jordan's grandma keeps hers in the back of the cabinet above the microwave.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Response, State.
Your Honor, this is an admission by party opponent.
Admissions, objections overruled. Go ahead.
What happened after you agreed to spend the night at Jordan's grandmother's house?
Jordan asked if my brother could get us some beer. The stage manager for my theater group had asked me the same thing last year, and my brother made it happen. I figured he would do it again.
When did you go to Jordan's grandmother's house?
Jordan, Riley, and I went there after school, but we went to my apartment first to get the beer that my brother bought and to get some video games to play. After that, we went to the gas station to get some snacks.
What did you do when you went to the house?
We played video games and drank beer in the basement. I guess at some point I must have passed out, but that didn't really surprise me because I don't drink that often.
What happened next?
I fell asleep. I went to the bathroom and then I saw that Jordan and Riley were both on. They must have gone upstairs because there are no other rooms in the basement.
Let the record reflect that my timer is sharing her screen to show opposing counsel what has been previously marked for identification as Exhibit 11.
Thank you.
Permission to approach the witness with this document.
Feel free, all of you, to move around the courtroom when you see fit.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Stevens, do you recognize this document?
Yes.
And what is it?
It is a copy of a picture of the basement in Jordan's grandma's house.
Is this a fair and accurate representation?
Yes.
Your Honor, I now move to enter Exhibit 11 into evidence.
Any objection, defense, on Exhibit 11?
Yes, Your Honor. Lack of foundation. The witness is not the party that took this picture.
Is that your only objection?
Yes.
Okay, it's a fair and accurate representation. The People's Exhibit 11 is admitted in evidence. The words for identification are stricken. You can publish it. Well, it's being published right now. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Stevens, can you explain the layout of the basement?
Yes. I was sleeping on the couch with the brown blanket on it. You can't see the bathroom or the stairs from this picture.
Directing your attention back to the night in question, what happened after you woke up?
I woke up and went to the bathroom and went back to the couch I was sleeping on. Jordan and Riley were still gone. I'm not sure what they were doing upstairs, but I remember hearing Jordan tell Riley that Jordan had something fun to try.
Did they come back down to the basement?
Yeah, they came back down about 20 minutes after I got back on the couch. And I noticed Riley seemed kind of out of it.
What happened next?
I woke up and I noticed I assumed they were smoking weed upstairs, and I didn't feel like talking to them after that, so I went back to sleep because I was upset.
And what happened after you fell back asleep?
I woke up to a weird noise. It sounded like something between a cough and a gurgle. It startled me so much I thought it was me at first, until I saw Riley on the ground, covered in vomit and choking. Riley was obviously struggling to breathe. It scared me so much I started screaming.
Did you notice anything else about Riley?
I noticed there was a prescription pill bottle next to Riley. Since he was choking and he was struggling to breathe, he must have taken the pills.
Objection, Your Honor, beyond the witness's knowledge.
Okay, who's doing the cross of this witness?
That is me.
And did you just make that objection? I'm sorry, I can't see the screen. Did you just make the objection?
Yes, I did.
And what was the objection again, Eric?
Beyond the witness's knowledge.
That's overruled. I'm going to allow that inquiry. Go ahead, State.
Do you remember anything else about that night?
I remember Jordan saying multiple times, "I never meant for this to happen." I also remember Riley's lips turning blue as he stopped moving and stopped choking. When the ambulance arrived, they tried to help Riley breathe, and they gave him some kind of shot, but none of it worked.
And after this incident, how do you feel about all of this?
Riley's fine when he went upstairs, but then when he came downstairs, he seemed kind of out of it, and then he died. I wish Jordan and Riley never went upstairs. I just don't know why any of this happened.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, State. Jurors, if you want to take a few seconds to put some comments down and look up or give me the thumbs up, and we'll go on to cross. Okay, cross-examination.
Permission to proceed, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
Ms. Stevens, you were the only one responsible for bringing alcoholic drinks to the party that night.
Yes, I was.
And this was a hangout with friends that you were not really close or familiar with.
That is correct.
You did, however, know that Riley was sick, correct?
Correct, but I didn't know what condition he had.
Is your statement in court today that you are not familiar with the condition Riley was suffering from?
I knew he had something called 65 roses, but I didn't know the exact name of it.
Okay. You did know, however, that it was enough to cause him to have to go to the hospital, correct?
That is correct.
Yet at this party, no one attempted to stop Riley from drinking.
That is correct.
You also drank a good amount that night, correct?
That is correct.
So much, in fact, that you passed out because of how much you drank.
That is correct.
You yourself are a lightweight, as you said, right?
That is correct.
And when you woke up to the sound of Riley choking, you said you were still buzzed, correct?
That is correct.
You also said that everything was foggy during that time.
That is correct.
As you saw Riley, you did not see any foaming at the mouth, did you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Basis?
That is beyond what the witness would know to do. Like, the witness would not know anything about foaming at the mouth.
Okay, I'm going to overrule that objection. It's certainly the witness is a eyewitness to this incident, and I'm going to allow counsel to inquire. Thanks.
If I may repeat the question, when you saw Riley, you did not witness any foaming at the mouth, did you?
I did not.
During that time, the responsible thing to do would be to call 911, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, you said that you do not know who called 911 that night, do you?
That is correct.
And if it wasn't you who made the 911 call, it must have been Jordan.
That is correct.
Speaking of Jordan, you never once received any form of drugs from Jordan, have you? Apologies, if you responded, I did not hear it. If you would like to repeat your response.
Did you hear the question?
No, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear it.
Oh,
can you repeat that question?
Of course, Your Honor. You never once received any form of drugs from Jordan, have you?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance?
Permission to respond, Your Honor?
Sure, go ahead.
A big factor in this trial is the prescription pill bottle of oxycodone. Along with this, the witness herself stated in the direct that Jordan has a reputation with drugs. So I believe drugs do play a big part in this trial today.
All right. That objection is sustained with regard to the reputation evidence as the way it came out in that question.
Understood. You believe Jordan had the drugs because of what you heard, correct?
That is correct.
You never once saw Jordan with any drugs physically.
That is correct.
You never saw Jordan give Riley the drugs, did you?
I did not.
You also never saw Riley ingest these drugs, did you?
I did not.
Your Honor, at this moment, I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Jurors, if you take a minute. Maya, I have a quick question while the jurors are doing their forms. I don't know is there redirect in this problem?
Yeah, if opposing counsel wants a redirect, she should be granted. Yeah.
Okay. State redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you. State. Say again? Did somebody say something? Okay. State, are you ready for your second witness?
I'm sorry.
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, to interrupt. Maya, quick question. When we're scoring the witnesses, what is this bit the score based on?
Their personality, how they did, how they answered the questions, things like that.
Perfect. That's what I thought. I didn't want to make an assumption. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, state witness 2.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the state would like to call our second witness, Dr. Alex McDonald, to the stand.
Okay. Dr. McDonald?
Yes.
Can you, 1 second. Dr. McDonald?
Yes.
Can you raise your right hand, please? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. State your witness is sworn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please introduce yourself to the court and jury.
My name is Dr. Alex McDonald. I am the Chief Medical Examiner for the Village of Clearwater in Lakeside County, Illinois. I've held this position for the past 13 years.
What is your educational background?
I earned my Doctor of Medicine degree in 1993 from Southern Illinois University with a focus in forensic pathology. After earning my MD, I went to work for the World Health Organization in Nigeria, where I worked to help identify and contain contagious diseases. 2 years later, I went back to SIU and earned a Master's of Science degree in epidemiology.
Do you have any certifications or memberships?
I'm a diplomat on the American Board of Pathology in both anatomic and forensic pathology. I'm also a member of the American Association for Clinical Pathology, as well as a member of the Association for Molecular Pathology.
And what is your professional experience?
I'm a member of the National Association for Medical Examiners, as well as the Illinois Coroner and Medical Examiners Association. I was also in the Forensic Fellowship Program after earning my MS degree in epidemiology, and I had another fellowship in forensic pathology before I became the Chief Medical Examiner.
What does it mean to be an epidemiologist and pathologist?
As an epidemiologist, I study the incidence, distribution, and possible control of diseases and other factors relating to health. My studies as a forensic pathologist allow me to determine the cause of death of a deceased person. As an anatomic pathologist, I study how diseases can affect the structure of the body.
And why are you testifying here today?
I was asked by the state of Illinois to review the case materials and give my expert opinion regarding the cause of Riley Russell's death.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to tender Dr. McDonald as an expert witness, as an epidemiologist and anatomic and forensic pathologist.
Any objection, defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, the jury's instructed that this witness is an expert in epidemiology and forensic science.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. McDonald, as an expert in epidemiology and anatomic and forensic pathology, do you have any specialties that relate to this case?
As an expert in the pathology and epidemiology of diseases, I have a specialty in the presence and evolution of contagious diseases in the body. I've also been asked to provide my expert testimony regarding the cause of Russell's death due to the fact that he had cystic fibrosis.
How does your specialty relate to cystic fibrosis?
Contagious diseases often have adverse effects on the body when drugs such as oxycodone are also present in the body. While cystic fibrosis is not a contagious disease, my specialty allows me to discuss how cystic fibrosis specifically interacts with the oxycodone in Russell's system at the time of death.
Have you ever treated a person with cystic fibrosis?
I've never treated a living patient with cystic fibrosis. However, I have conducted multiple autopsies on patients with this disease.
Did you personally examine Riley Russell?
Yes, Russell was brought to the ME's office on June 6th, 2020, about 14 hours after he had died of a suspected overdose of oxycodone. I performed the autopsy on Russell.
And what is oxycodone?
Oxycodone is a prescription drug used to relieve severe pain. It works by changing how a person perceives pain in their brain and slows down the patient's heart. It is one of the most commonly abused drugs in the US.
What information did you use to come to your findings?
In addition to the autopsy I performed, I also looked at the police reports, lab reports, and medical records to come to my findings.
What can you tell us about the autopsy?
I noticed that Russell had a thick mucus and heavy scarring in his lungs. However, Neither were obstructing his airways. I also noticed that he had been in a state of severe respiratory distress before he died.
Anything else?
Russell was not a full-grown adult and generally on the smaller side for someone of his age. He also vomited shortly before his death, and his lungs were filled with fluid, which is common when a patient's heart is not functioning correctly.
And what conclusions can you make based on this information?
Based off of this information, I can conclude that the effects of cystic fibrosis on Russell's body were minimal. I can also conclude that there were both signs of drug overdose and alcohol poisoning.
What can you tell us about Russell's fibrosis?
Typically, those with cystic fibrosis often have a thick mucus that can obstruct the airways. Heavy scarring in the lungs is also typical. However, as I mentioned earlier, during my autopsy of Russell, I found no obstruction. This leads me to believe that cystic fibrosis could not have caused the sudden death of Russell. Even with the presence of cigarettes and alcohol, I do not believe that cystic fibrosis caused Russell's death.
Could alcohol have had adverse effects on Russell?
As with anyone else, yes. According to the toxicology lab report, Russell had a BAC of 0.16, which was high for someone of his age and size. However, it is my professional medical opinion that Russell did not have enough alcohol in his system to cause alcohol poisoning.
Were there any other factors in this conclusion?
Russell was observed to be gasping for air or choking before he died. He had also vomited shortly before his death. And while these are both signs of alcohol poisoning, during my examination of Russell's esophagus and throat, I found no obstruction. This leads me to believe that his severe respiratory distress was not caused by choking on vomit and not a result of alcohol poisoning.
Did you form any conclusions regarding the cause of Russell's death?
Yes. I can say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that the oxycodone in Russell's system caused his death. There are a few factors that led me to this conclusion: the amount of opiates in Russell's system, the timing of the incident, and Russell's severe respiratory distress.
Let the record reflect that my timer is sharing her screen to show opposing counsel what has been previously marked for identification as Exhibit 3.
Objection, Your Honor.
Excuse me, I have to just stop. One of the timekeepers has said, the defense timekeeper has said the time is up. I know the prosecution has a timekeeper. Is that like the same time, or is there a dispute about the time?
Yes, I was just putting mine in the chat. Was that not going to the group?
Oh, so you said stop shoot?
We both are counting that they're over time.
Okay.
Thank you. Then no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Everybody, jurors, if you take a minute to fill out your the direct and the witness information. Okay, cross-examination of the doctor.
Yes. Dr. McDonald, you are aware that Mr. Russell was living with a disease called cystic fibrosis, correct?
Yes.
In your time as a medical examiner, you've only performed a couple autopsies on patients with the disease, right?
Correct.
And you've never treated a live person with the disease.
Correct.
Thank you. Dr. McDonald, in forming your opinion, you reviewed all evidence in this case, correct?
Yes, I did.
So you reviewed Riley Russell's toxicology report.
Yes.
Then you observed that Russell's blood alcohol concentration was 0.16. And that 0.16 blood alcohol concentration is relatively high for someone of Riley's size.
1 second, we're having some trouble with the audio. Dr. McDonald, can you hear us okay?
Correct.
Okay, make sure everybody on this call is on mute.
Yes.
I'm getting some background.
Yeah, I hear it too. I think it's the doctor's internet. She's a little behind.
Okay, so on cross, just give a little bit of time to your witness to answer. Doctor, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay, we're back. Go ahead, defense. And hey, just for the record, that clock will stop during that technical issue, right?
Yes.
Timekeepers? Okay, go ahead, defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. So you reviewed Riley Russell's toxicology report, yes?
Yes, I did.
Then you observed that Russell's blood alcohol concentration was 0.16.
Yes.
And 0.16 is relatively high for someone of Riley's size, correct?
Yes, it is.
You've also seen people die with similar blood alcohol concentrations.
Very few, yes.
All of these people were teenagers, correct?
All three of them, yes.
Could I ask that the witness please restate her answer? It was a little cut out.
Doctor, could you repeat that, please?
Oh, sorry. All three of them, yes.
And Riley Russell himself was a teenager, correct?
Yes, he was.
In the toxicology report, you also observed that the oxycodone in Mr. Russell's blood was 0.49, correct?
Yes, it was.
0.49 is a relatively low amount for an oxycodone overdose, is it not?
In some cases, yes.
From reviewing his medical records, you know that Russell had never been prescribed opiates, correct?
Correct.
However, Riley still managed to consume oxycodone that night, correct?
Yes.
So there's no way of knowing if Riley took opiates without a prescription, correct?
I would not know.
And without knowing his history with the drug, it is impossible to determine whether Russell had a tolerance built up to it, correct?
Correct.
Moving on, in the case materials that you reviewed, it was observed that Russell was gasping for air and choking before his death, correct?
Correct.
Russell had even vomited too.
Yes.
These symptoms, in your own words, are more consistent with death by alcohol poisoning, correct?
Yes, they are.
And in all cases with multiple substances involved, you can never be 100% sure of the cause of death, right?
Not 100% sure, just to a reasonable degree of medical certainty.
Now that we know what was observed, let's talk about what was not observed. A common sign of overdose is white foaming at the mouth, correct?
Yes, it is.
So common that 80 to 90% of overdose victims have this white frothing, right?
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken, however, Russell was not seen with any of this foaming at the mouth.
No, he didn't have foaming around his mouth, but he had fluid in his lungs, which happens before foaming at the mouth.
There was no actual foaming at the mouth, however?
No actual foaming, no.
Thank you. No further questions.
Is there any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Okay, jurors, if you take a minute. Thank you, doctor. State, do you have other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, the prosecution rests.
Thank you very much. State rests with the admittance of People's Exhibit 11. Defense, are you ready to proceed?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. At this time, myself, Madison Tate, would like to call the defendant, Jordan Markson, to the stand, portrayed by Eve Dark.
You're, 1 second, I'm going to fix my computer. Could you raise your right hand, please? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I swear.
Your witness is sworn.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Please state your name for the court, spelling your last.
Jordan Markson, Markson.
How old are you, Jordan?
I'm 18 years old.
Where do you currently reside?
I live in Clearwater, Illinois with my parents.
What is your current occupation?
Student. I was a senior at Clearwater High, and I had plans to attend Clearwater State with a scholarship before all this happened.
Drawing your attention to the evening of June 5th, where were you?
I was in my grandmother's basement.
What were you doing in your grandmother's basement?
I was hanging out with two of my friends, Blake and Riley.
Why were you hanging out with your friends?
Well, it was a Friday, and during gym class, Blake and I talked about getting some beers from his brother and hanging out. Later that day, I told Riley, and that made the three of us. Riley was always up for things like that.
Where was this taking place?
In my grandmother's basement.
Why were you not in your own home?
Well, my parents are constantly fighting, and my grandmother's basement's like my own little sanctuary. I feel so safe there, and I thought it would be a great place to have friends.
Did you speak with your family about going to your grandmother's house?
Yeah, I asked my grandma if I could go over, but I'll admit, I didn't exactly tell her the full truth.
What did you say to your grandmother when you spoke to her?
Well, I told her that my parents had just gotten into a big fight, and that's why I wanted to go over. I also didn't tell her about Blake and Riley, but I didn't think it would be a big deal since we weren't going to leave the basement anyway.
Why did you tell her this?
Well, my grandma never comes down to the basement because of her bad knees and hips, so no one would be spying on us with our beer. We couldn't drink at my house or anyone else's. And like I've said before, we would just be keeping the mess in the basement and it wouldn't be in anyone's way but mine. I just wanted to have fun with my friends, that's all.
Moving on to the end of the school day, what did you do?
Well, first we went to Blake's house to pick up a few things.
What did you pick up?
We got the beer from his brother and then a video game. Later we went to a convenience store to get some snacks for the night.
What did you do when you arrived at your grandmother's house?
We were just hanging out, eating, drinking, making sure to isolate the mess to the basement so it wouldn't be in anybody's way.
Did you leave the basement at any point that evening?
No, not until the EMTs came. My grandma was so kind to let me stay over, and I wanted to be respectful of her space and not mess up any of her belongings.
What did you do once you all arrived?
It was nothing you wouldn't expect from a group of seniors. We were drinking, eating, playing games. Being able to spend that time with my close friends meant a lot to me, and I'm still in awe about how tragically it ended.
Did anything stand out to you as odd that evening?
Yeah, there was one point when Riley asked a really weird question. He asked if I had any pills in the house. I was so confused. I thought maybe he was trying to be cool, but I didn't even think Riley took pills like that.
What was your response to this odd question?
I told him that the only pills I could think of were the ones that I've seen my grandmother take at meal times, but I didn't know what kind of pills they were or where they were.
Did you tell him where the pills could be found?
No, I didn't know where they were, and I would never encourage taking prescription pills of any kind. I've seen the commercials and I know how fatal they can be.
What happened after this interaction?
Well, we just kept playing video games and Riley didn't mention the pills the rest of the night.
Did you fall asleep at any point?
Yeah, I fell asleep at one point, but I don't exactly remember when.
When did you end up waking up?
Well, I woke up because of Riley. It was a choking noise.
Did you notice anything once you moved towards Riley?
I'll never forget what I saw. He was lying, his eyes sealed shut, shaking. It scared me. I immediately went to go call 911. I was so worried. And when I picked up the phone, that's when I noticed that there was a bottle next to Riley. I picked it up and I saw that it had my grandmother's name on the label, and it freaked me out even more. I dropped them by my side. I didn't think Riley would go looking for them.
Miss Markson, I know this is difficult, but I just have a few questions left. Where was Blake during all this?
I don't know where Blake was. I was too worried about Riley, but I did hear him scream after I'd called 911.
What happened once the help arrived?
Well, once the EMTs got there, we left the basement for the first time that night. I answered all their questions and told them everything that happened. I still feel so horrible about what happened. Such a fun night with my closest friends, it turned into a nightmare. It seemed as though Riley had accidentally killed himself.
How do you feel about what happened that evening?
Horrible. I lost one of my closest friends, and I can't believe he would go looking for the pills.
Did you give those pills to Riley?
No, I did not give Riley those pills. What happened is such a tragedy, and it's sad. His own curiosity is what led us there, but I did not give Riley those pills.
Thank you, Miss Markson. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, jurors, if you'd take a minute. Okay, cross of Jordan Markson.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Thank you. Hello, Ms. Markson. I have a couple questions for you. In your affidavit, you state that after talking to your grandmother, she gave you permission to stay at her house, right?
Yes.
Thank you. You also say that you lied and told her that the reason you were going was because your parents had been fighting, correct?
Do you mind repeating the question? I apologize.
Yes. You say that you lied and you told your grandmother that the reason you were going to stay at her house was because your parents had been fighting when they hadn't, right?
Yes, but I didn't think it would be a big deal.
Thank you. And in fact, you also lied and you didn't tell her that friends were coming over, correct?
Yes, but like I said, it wasn't going to be a problem.
Thank you. Moving on, you state that your grandma has hip and knee problems, correct?
Yes.
And you say because of this reason, she rarely goes down into the basement, right?
Correct.
But you found the oxycodone pill bottle right next to Riley in the basement, right?
Correct.
Moving on, you state that once you guys hit the basement, you guys didn't go upstairs all night, correct?
Yeah, we didn't leave the basement until the EMTs came.
And once again, just for clarification, you found the oxycodone pill bottle right next to Riley in the basement, right?
Correct.
Thank you. You say that Riley asked you if there was anything fun in the house, correct?
Yeah, I was super confused.
And you say in your affidavit that you told Riley that your grandmother took prescription pills. Is that so?
Yes, but I didn't know what kind of pills they are or what they were.
but you told Riley that they were in the house somewhere, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that I am asking my timekeeper to show opposing counsel what has been previously marked as prosecution exhibit 5.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Markson, do you recognize this document?
No.
Objection, Your
Just
Honor. Lack of foundation.
Okay. What's the objection?
Lack of foundation. Opposing counsel has not laid any foundation for this exhibit.
Well, they're not asking it to be admitted
Your Honor,
yet.
if you...
One second. They're not asking to admit it yet. It was only asked if you recognize it, and the answer was no. So that objection now is ruled.
Could I lay some foundation for this, Your Honor?
I think it'd be a great idea. Go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Markson, you state in your affidavit that you made a 911 call after you saw Riley on the floor, correct?
Yes, I wanted to help him.
Okay, thank you. So this is the transcript of that 911 call you made. And if you look under caller 1, it says that you state your name very clearly in this document. And now, once again, do you recognize this document?
No, I have never seen the transcript.
But these are the words that you said when you called 911, correct?
I recall making the phone call, but I do not recall seeing this.
But you clearly state your name when you called 911, correct?
Yes, I agree. I made the phone call. Never seen the transcript.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, moving on. Sorry about that. Moving on. In your affidavit, you state that you have done drugs before, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Improper character testimony.
Question was, you done drugs before? Is that correct, counsel? Is that what your question was?
Excuse me?
What was your question? Have you done drugs before? Did you just ask?
Yes, I have. Yes, I did.
You have a response to the objection?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I do. This line of questioning does not go to prove any conformity or any character trait. It is just to establish the fact of the matter that Jordan Markson has admitted to this behavior in their affidavit.
Okay.
Your Honor, may I respond?
You may.
Jordan Markson claiming to have done drugs before is very relevant to the case here today, and doesn't go to prove the proof if the oxycodone was applied.
Thank you. I'm going to rule in favor of keeping that evidence out. I don't find it relevant now, and I think the prejudicial of it. So if you move on, counsel.
That was my final question, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Any redirect?
Not based on that.
Jurors, if you take a minute. Okay. Defense, do you have another witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense would like to call Dr. Taylor Smith to the stand.
All right, Dr. Smith? Dr. Smith, can you raise your hand?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can. Could you raise your right hand, please?
Yeah.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
So help me God.
Thank you very much. Doctor, your witness is sworn.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Dr. Smith, would you please state your full name as well as your profession for the court?
Yes. My name is Taylor Smith, and I am a doctor.
And how long have you been a doctor?
30 years and counting.
And where did you receive your education to become a doctor?
I received my bachelor's in science and medical degree from the University of Chicago, and I completed my fellowship at Johns Hopkins University.
After that, did you receive any certifications?
Yes, I am certified by the board in internal medicine and pulmonary disease.
And in those certifications, is there a specific area of expertise that you specialize in?
Yes, there is. I specifically specialize in cystic fibrosis.
Why specifically cystic fibrosis?
Bit of a tragic tale, but my brother Victor, he died from the disease a bit back, and that really inspired my career into cystic fibrosis.
What do you do with your expertise?
Well, I have written many publications. I've also given many speeches about the treatment and care of cystic fibrosis, as well as many other things and duties that a doctor of my position does.
As a doctor of your position, are you involved in your community?
Yes, I am.
In what ways?
Well, I am a volunteer and former board member of the Chicago Cystic Fibrosis Society. I am also a volunteer and member of the Boys and Girls Club, as well as a member of the Cubs Booster Club.
Your Honor, at this time, I would ask that Dr. Smith be recognized as an expert witness in the area of pulmonary diseases, specifically cystic fibrosis.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, then this witness will be considered an expert in pulmonary diseases and cystic fibrosis and can be taken by the jurors as an expert.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Smith, why are you here in court today?
I was retained by the lawyer, the attorneys for the defendant Jordan Markson on August 3rd to give my opinion about the events of the night and the death of Riley Russell.
Did you reach any expert opinions in this case?
Yes, I did.
What did you base these opinions on?
I based my opinions on all of the witness affidavits provided to me, as well as the state's report, the laboratory report, the email correspondence, the pictures taken on the scene, pretty much all the evidence that was given to me.
Did you review all of these materials that were provided to you?
Yes, every single one.
And based on what was provided to you to a reasonable degree of certainty, have you formed an opinion about the cause of Riley Russell's death?
Yes, I have.
What is that opinion?
My opinion is that although Riley Russell had ingested oxycodone, it was his, so to speak, it was his condition, cystic fibrosis, and him not participating in everything that he could have done to help his condition, and in fact attracting like drinking and smoking that caused his death.
And what led you to view these factors as the causes of Riley's death?
First of all, you have to look at cystic fibrosis. And to do that, I specifically looked at the Riley's medical report written by Dr. Stanley Owsley.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to inform the court that my screen share will be presenting Exhibit 4.
Defense Exhibit 4. Any objection to Defense Exhibit 4 being published?
No objections, Your Honor.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Are you familiar with what is being presented,
Yes, I am.
and what is it?
It is the medical record of Riley Russell by Dr. Stanley Owsley.
Is this a fair and accurate copy of that medical record that you reviewed?
Yes, it is.
And what did this document lead you to conclude?
This document led me to conclude that although Riley Russell had cystic fibrosis, his condition was beginning to worsen instead of getting better. In fact, the FEV, or flow rates, which is the amount of air that can get into his lungs, that decreased from a normal 77%, which is already under 100%, to a normal of 45%, meaning that he isn't getting half as much air as the rest of us are in order to breathe. Furthermore, I also leaned into this document in my conclusions to whether or not Riley Russell was performing his daily exercise and regularly meeting with a doctor, as well as taking medicine for his condition. Because of this, I learned or came to the conclusion that Riley Russell's condition was severely decreasing and not in any way, shape, or form improving.
Would you explain Riley's condition, what cystic fibrosis is, for this court?
I'm sorry. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disease that specifically targets the lungs as well as the digestive system. Basically, fibrosis takes the mucus that is in your lungs and some digestive fluids, and it makes them all thick and sticky, which kind of clogs the airways and clogs certain parts of your digestive system. And this is not good because it means that either you can't breathe or your body can't perform certain functions correctly that are basically needed to live.
Is this disease treatable?
It is treatable, and patients can live sometimes as long as 30 and 40 years. But if you're not, if you're not actively participating in the physical therapy and you're not taking your medicine and you're not meeting with your doctor, this treatment can be very, very deadly.
Is it your opinion that Riley was taking these necessary steps?
It is my opinion that he was not taking these necessary steps as seen in the medical record, as well as a witness affidavit I reviewed.
Your Honor, at this time, I ask that Exhibit 4 be admitted into evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Thank you,
Exhibit 4
Screen Share.
will
I
be
apologize.
admitted into words for identification are stricken. Any other questions?
Just a few, Your Honor. Dr. Smith, to your knowledge, was anything else, any other toxin, found in Riley Russell's body at the time of his death?
Yes, there was. In fact, it is also the evidence, it is also the existence of the alcohol in his blood that really prompted me towards cystic fibrosis being the cause of his death. Using the toxicology report I reviewed, I saw that I saw that alcohol was present in his blood, and alcohol, it can severely inhibit the cystic fibrosis that Riley had.
Finally, was the presence of oxycodone in Riley's system an indicator to you that oxycodone was a main cause of death for Riley Russell?
Oxycodone in and of itself is a painkiller. And although you can overdose on painkillers in and of themselves, especially in the amounts that Riley took, are not that fatal. it was the combination of drinking and smoking that caused Riley Russell's death, and along with cystic fibrosis.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. No further questions.
Cross-examination of the doctor.
All right, may I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Okay, starting off, your realm of expertise is being certified in internal medicine and pulmonary disease, correct?
That is correct.
But you also have a specialty in cystic fibrosis, isn't that right?
That is correct.
But you are not an expert in narcotics, are you?
Internal medicine can mean a lot of things, but narcotics specifically, that is correct.
Okay, so you have no expert opinion on how they affect the body, isn't that so?
To a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that is correct.
So that's a no?
Yes.
Okay. And you certainly can't say how they would negatively affect a person, especially with cystic fibrosis, could you?
I cannot in the way that Alex McDonald can. That is
All right.
correct.
Moving on to some things you testified on previously. You claim that you are using your medical certainty to make a statement about what caused Riley's death, right?
That is correct, as well as
And-
the affidavit of Dr. Alex McDonald.
All right. And you are making the claim that oxycodone was not a substantial factor in Riley's death. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
And even when we have clarified that opioids are not your realm of expertise, isn't that right?
They are not my primary realm. That is correct.
All right. Up next, how you gathered your information. You have no personal knowledge of Riley's death, do you?
I'm sorry, can you explain what you mean by personal knowledge?
You didn't conduct any interviews of the people that witnessed it or see Riley's body yourself, correct?
That is correct. I only reviewed all of the affidavits and evidence provided to me.
Okay. Nor do you have personal knowledge of Riley's smoking habits.
I feel like I have a pretty accurate description because of the affidavits I reviewed, but whether I met the man, that is, I never met him. So that is correct, I guess.
And you have no sound proof of Riley's drinking habits other than reports from Riley's friends, isn't that right?
Yes, similar to the smoking, that is correct.
And all of your information from the alleged crime is secondhand information filtered through your own specialty.
I used the affidavit of Dr. Alex McDonald specifically a lot in coming up with my opinion. And he reviewed the body. So although I guess it is technically secondhand information, you would be correct.
So that's a yes?
Yes, that is.
Okay.
Yes.
Next, your conclusions on how Riley died. You never conducted any interviews from those who witnessed Riley's death, right?
As has been stated, that is correct.
Yep. Nor did you examine Riley's body yourself, correct?
That is correct.
And you were not Riley's doctor, isn't that right?
No, Dr. Stanley Owsley was. That's correct.
And you never talked to Riley while they were alive, is that true?
Or when they were dead, but yes, that's correct.
So all of your conclusions on Riley's personal life are all based on just medical reports?
As well as all the witness affidavits, but yes, that's correct.
All right. And you are aware that other than the night of the alleged crime, there is no sound evidence of Riley drinking alcohol, correct?
That is correct.
And you are still making the claim that in part Riley was killed from drinking alcohol?
It's funny that you would mention that he hadn't had any alcohol before the night. This actually increased my belief that alcohol was a cause. You see, if he had had alcohol before this night, he probably would have died that night that he did take alcohol. So, yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you are aware that Riley was a teenager, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you even state yourself that Riley was a non-user, correct?
in the sense pertaining to oxycodone and all those painkillers. That's correct.
Furthermore, even you are aware that the dosage was high for Riley, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further to say.
Thank you. Redirect.
As we are out of time, Your Honor, the defense rests.
Okay, jurors, if you want to take a minute.
Just a quick announcement for judges. We're skipping verbal feedback due to time constraints for round 2. And after this round, can judges please go to your judge page and check in for round 2 immediately after we finish, after we wrap up closing statements and you submit your ballots. And team, the parents will be out on process as soon as they're ready. So please go and join your second courtroom for the next round as soon as the parents are out.
Okay, give me 1 second, everybody. Thanks. Okay, state, closing argument.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Thank you. May it please the court, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. One pill stole one life. Jordan Markson supplied that one pill, and it stole Riley Russell's life. As the prosecution in today's case, we have the burden of proof to prove 2 counts beyond a reasonable doubt. The first count is drug-induced homicide. To support this count, we need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that 1, the defendant knowingly gave Riley Russell a substance containing oxycodone. 2, that Riley Russell ingested any amount of oxycodone. And 3, that Riley Russell's death was caused by this ingestion and any amount of the oxycodone contributed to his death. The second count is possession of a controlled substance. To prove this count, we need to prove that Jordan Markson, the defendant, possessed a substance containing oxycodone, which is classified as a controlled substance. June 5th, 2020 went on as any other day, but a tragedy was waiting to unfold. Riley Russell was declared dead, taken from the world far too young and far too soon. He was delivered an oxycodone pill, a drug, a narcotic, given to him by the defendant, which resulted in his death. Today, you have heard from 2 witnesses, Blake Stevens and Dr. Alex McDonald. Blake Stevens testified that she had overheard the defendant say that they knew where the pills were, that they were in the cabinet above the microwave. They have also testified to the fact that the defendant and Riley Russell were nowhere to be found when Blake woke up to use the restroom and were gone for about 20 minutes. You have also heard from Dr. Alex McDonald. She has testified that Riley Russell's death was attributed to 3 things: the timing, the amount, and the distress. The timing of the quick death lining up with pieces of evidence, such as the time of first complications, the 40 milligrams of oxycodone ingested by Russell, shown in the toxicology report, which she attested to being deadly if taken without a doctor's approval, and the severe respiratory distress that she observed in Riley Russell, typically caused by oxycodone. All these are consistent with death by opiates. Defense will try to cloud your judgment, but do not be fooled. Defense will try to argue that Blake Stevens and Dr. Alex McDonald were unreliable witnesses. Defense will mention how Blake Stevens was too intoxicated to be a reliable witness, but this isn't true. Blake Stevens is just a teenager that went through a traumatic experience. Defense will try to say that Dr. Alex McDonald has never treated live people, but failed to recognize that she has conducted several autopsies on patients with the same disease as Riley. Now, moving on, we as the defense ask you to find the defendant guilty on the charges of drug-induced homicide and possession of a controlled substance. One pill stole one life. Jordan Markson gave that one pill. Thank you.
Thank you. Defense, close.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Eric Rojas, and I am here today to ask you to not make this a double tragedy. What occurred on the morning of June 6th in the basement of Jordan Markson's grandmother's home is a tragedy, but do not let grief cloud your judgment. As a jury, you will decide if the opposing counsel has fulfilled their burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that our defendant, Jordan Markson, is guilty of drug-induced homicide and possession of a controlled substance. But I am here to tell you right now, they failed. The prosecution failed because they failed to prove 3 elements that they needed to show you today. First, they could not prove Jordan Markson was in possession of a controlled substance. Second, they failed to prove Jordan delivered the drugs to Riley Russell. And third, they failed to show you that the oxycodone ingested by Riley Russell was what led to his tragic death. Let's take these one by one. First, let's talk about how they failed to meet the delivery element. The prosecution called Blake Stevens to the stand. They testified to everything that night. Well, everything they could see. They saw Jordan and Riley together outside of the basement. No, they didn't. They assumed that based on not seeing them in the basement with no idea on where they were. Blake testified on Jordan delivering the drugs to Riley. Oh, wait, that was another assumption made off of lack of information based on seeing the pill bottle in the basement. But Blake heard Jordan saying that they never meant for this to happen. But once again, they assumed its meaning while also being foggy and under the influence of alcohol. The prosecution said that Blake was just a young teenager that went through a traumatic experience. And while I do agree the events were traumatic, we cannot ignore the fact that alcohol was in his system at this point. Jordan herself testified as to the meaning behind her statement, saying that it wasn't about giving Riley the drugs. It was about how the events turned out. Jordan also testified that they never left the basement at any point, let alone with Riley Russell. And lastly, Jordan finally testified that they had no idea where the drugs were located. And I want to ask you, can you deliver drugs to someone if you have no idea where they are? Next, let's turn to the element of causation. The opposing counsel spoke to lengths about how the oxycodone was what resulted in the death. But let me remind you, not a single witness stated that. Yes, Dr. Alex McDonald hinted at it, disproving many theories, but he never stated exactly what the cause of death was. And with him trying to disprove theories, that also was not very effective. Dr. McDonald herself stated that you can never be 100% sure about the cause of death when multiple substances are involved. Sure, you can make the assumption based off of medical certainty, but can you really say there's certainty when there are so many contradictions? First, Dr. McDonald themselves stated that the amount of oxycodone consumed is rare to cause a death. Along with this, there was a lack of foaming at the mouth, which Blake Stevens testified to seeing, which occurs in 80 to 90% of victims. Can you really say Riley Russell died to an overdose when it's rare for him to die to the amount taken and there's only a 10 to 20% chance foam will not appear? Dr. McDonald also never spoke of cystic fibrosis due to lack of experience, but you know someone who does have experience? Dr. Taylor Smith. And Taylor Smith gave us all a clear view onto why smoking and alcohol was the cause of death, along with the cystic fibrosis. The events that occurred on that night were very upsetting, and we can all agree a life was taken too soon. But that does not give us the right to judge and serve justice with our hearts. We cannot make a double tragedy of the events tonight. Members of the jury, if you decide Jordan Martin is beyond a doubt guilty, then that is the wrong decision. There are too many contradictions, too many unclear factors in this trial today to make a decision with no doubt. There's only one way you can take this. You must find Jordan Martin not guilty based on your duties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, jurors, if you wrap this up. Okay, so Maya, we have to leave when we're done. And I know you said we can't have any comments, but I'm saying this really quick. You guys are terrific. I can't tell you how good you are. You have command of the facts, and this is hard stuff. And you're better than a lot of people who walk up in front of me every single day. Don't tell them that. But I know I'd like to tell you more, and nice job doing this during the pandemic. Hang in there. You'll get through the pandemic. You'll get on the other side. We'll all be better for it. And you guys will all know Zoom better than anybody that's any bit older than you. Sorry, Maya. I know that wasn't allowed.
No, that's okay. But if all judges and jurors could submit their ballots before you leave the Zoom, and for teams, again, you just wait for your next pairing to be posted on Process, and then you'll have your round 2. But you guys are free to go. And you guys did great.
All right, so there's a bunch of stuff, jurors. There's a bunch of stuff on the last page that I didn't know. So I'm going to do that, and I'll meet you over in the next room if we're together. If not, thanks. Good to see y'all.
Hi, Maya. Sorry to interrupt. We don't have our pairings up yet. Do we need to still leave the room?
You don't have, well, you actually are free to go until your next pairings are out.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, judges.
Thanks, everybody.